Hey, what is up guys? Just a quick note before the video starts. In this one we basically make a PNG texture that it looks something like this. And I just want to say that this texture is available on the Facebook page, so if you just want to go there and grab it, you can do that. And pretty much a good part of the video is just creating that from scratch. So in case you're interested in learning that, then go ahead and watch the whole video. But if you only want to implement this into your game, then click on the annotation on the screen right now and it is going to take you where we start actually using the texture. Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the mobile game tutorial. So, we've been modeling for a few episodes right now. We've did some simple models such as these you see on the screen. What I'd like to do now is take a little break from modeling. We're going to be drawing the UI. Because right now the UI looks really bad, and I think that's one of the most, one of the biggest thing we can fix right now for this to look a little bit better at least. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by counting the amount of things we need for the UI, and we'll put everything in a single texture because we're really optimal and this is for mobile phone. Alright, so right now I'm going to pack a few of the elements together. So the back button over here, this is going to be one of the element. The background panel is going to be one other element. The button is going to use the same one as the panel, and this one we already have that. This we could be using the back panel, and inside of the game we need two more for the joystick, and the background of the joystick we need a boost button, we need a pause button, and I think the rest we got everything covered. Okay, so that sounds really confusing like that, but I'm just going to lay them out on a Photoshop texture. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and just, I'm going to close everything I have right now. We're going to create a new texture. I'm going to make this 520, oops, not 520, 512 by 512 pixel, and we're going to call this I'll just call it UI Atlas. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing we did for the player texture. You know how we had multiple texture in a single Photoshop file, but inside of Unity we cut it so we have multiple sprites. So it's going to be really similar. I'm going to go ahead and just change the background for some kind of blue like that so I can see better, and we're going to go ahead and just save this in our Unity folder. So I'm in the artwork, texture, and next to our tile green, I'm going to save this as the UI Atlas. Okay, so now if we go into game, we should see it, just to make sure. Oh, by the way, the pause menu is some tests I've did before, so don't worry about that. So here it is. That's our UI Atlas. Right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back inside of Photoshop, and we're going to go and just assign some of these spaces to the UI elements. So the way we're going to split this is the exact same way we did for the player texture. So over here I have a 128 by 128 square. Now if you remember with the player texture, what we've did is we've made a 4 by 4. Now we could do the exact same thing with that, so just copy like so, and now we have 4 squares in length. So basically what I've did is I've zoomed in quite a lot using Alt and middle mouse up, and I went over here, start dragging until I got 128 pixels by 128 pixels. Now if you don't see the pixels, you have to go inside of view, or not view, sorry. You have to go inside of edit, then preference, and then units and ruler. Over here you can set the ruler to pixels, you can set the type to pixels as well. Okay, so once that is done, you start dragging over here until you get 128 by 128. So just like that. So I'm at around 128 by 128. Here it is. I got my selection. Now I'm going to create a new layer, and I will use my bucket tool to paste a color. Any color, doesn't really matter. Right. So now we have a 1 by 1 square that we can use to just measure. So with that 1x1 square, we're going to go ahead and just take a look at the background panel. That's the first element we'll do. So the background panel we see here in the pause menu, so this thing. We also see it here in the background, so that's the two buttons up front and the background is here. We see it here, we see it in the shop as well, so that's the first thing. Now a 1x1 square is not going to be good enough for this, so we'll be using a 2x1 instead. So in Photoshop, I will rename my background layer for background, and I will take this little thing that we just made and I'll call this measuring unit. Now I can hide it, or actually let's not hide it just yet. Let's duplicate it by hitting Control J, and then I will hit Control T on the keyboard to drag, to free transform this, and then drag it towards the right using the Shift so it snaps to this angle. And we just put it next to it like so, and this is the result we should now have. So with these two now, what I'm going to do is make sure that I keep a copy of the measuring unit, then I hide it, and I will merge these two squares together so I have the 2x1. So right click on these, merge, and here they are. Okay, so that's going to be the size we can use for our background panel. So I will go ahead and just make this black for now, so black. And we are going to draw, we're going to create a new layer and we'll call that background panel. Actually, you know what? We're going to create a new folder that we're going to call background panel. So that being said, I do not need any of that anymore. We do need the measuring unit, so I'll just leave that here. But I will be working in the background panel folder from now on. So for the background, I was thinking about something fairly simple, so maybe just drag a rectangle like so, then paste in a color. So I'll be using my bucket tool by hitting J on the keyboard, or G, I think, yeah, that's G, sorry. So you hit G on the keyboard and then you have to give it some colors. So if you have any reference of your color palette that you'd like to use, now would be the best time. As for me, I'll be using this kind of cyan. And yeah, alright. Now what I'll do is I'll style it up a little bit by just cutting the edge over here. So I'm selecting using the lasso tool, and I will simply cut these. That will give it a bit of style. And once that is done, I will go ahead and duplicate this. So Control J, then free transform, Control T, scale it down. Oh, actually wait, before that, I'm going to change its color for something I can notice. So maybe this, then hit Control T, and I will take a gizmo up here, hold Shift, and then hold Alt, and drag this toward the center, so maybe like that. Now with that done, I will be using my 1 tool to select, so that's W on the keyboard, and I will select this purple color. Now with that selected, I will go ahead and click on my background panel, so that's the cyan color in the back. I will click on this and then hit delete. This way, if I hide my first layer, we actually made a hole through that. Okay, then I will go ahead and drag and drop this just beneath my cyan layer and make it a little bit bigger so it fills in the hole. So right now we have some kind of background going on here, and these are the borders. I'll go ahead and choose my borders and just apply some effects to it by double clicking on the layer over here, and then we could be putting, say, not a stroke, we could be putting a shadow, so drop shadow would be great. Maybe a little bit of bevel, but not too much because it looks really fake. So just play with the settings a bit if you do want to apply that. And then I will go ahead and zoom in on this part because it's a little bit messy. I don't know if you can tell. See if I can clean it up using my erase tool, which is the E on the keyboard. So this should look a little bit better. Now I will go ahead and move to the other side, like so. just trim this a little bit. Right. Okay. Now we can go ahead and give the background another color. So I'll be using my gradient tool, not my gradient, my bucket tool again. Picking this color by holding Alt and then clicking. And maybe make this a little bit lighter, so something of the sort. And that could just be my panel right there. Now you could also give it some kind of texture if you have any. I don't think I have any in my Photoshop, so I'm just going to double click on my layer, go inside of texture, and see if I have another panel that I can use. None of these actually look good, so what I'll do instead of using a texture, I'll be using a gradient so that I can have maybe something of the sort and reverse it, or not. That's actually fine. Okay, so I'll be rolling with that and maybe reduce the opacity to say 50 or even 35. Okay, so that should be it for our background panel. Now if we turn this off, we can actually have a good look of what it will give us in the game. Now obviously this is not going to be the only thing we need. Let's go back in our game and have a look at what we want. So for these buttons, for the big white buttons, I'm actually thinking about using the same thing for now, so I'll just leave it like that, and we're not going to create a new button for those just yet, because I just want to see how it looks with those, well, pretty much with the same texture. Okay, so next thing we need is a pause and a boost button. So let's go ahead and give ourselves some space for that. I will go ahead and re-enable this so I can just measure. Now I'll take my cyan measuring unit and move it around here. So this is now my new space for this would be the pause button, I believe. Yeah, so let's go to the pause button here. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this and create a pause button. Now I will drag and drop my measuring unit inside of the pause button, turn off all the other ones because I don't need them. And let's go ahead and make this black so we can have a good look of the size. And let's just call this measuring unit. Why not? Okay, so now as for the pause button, again, something really simple. What I'll do is I'll go in custom tools and I'll use a rounded rectangle tool. I'll just go ahead and try to center myself in the middle of the black square, then click and hold while I'm holding shift on the keyboard and also while I'm holding alt, and I will just scale this up like so. And now the fill color up here, I'll change that for maybe this color. Oh, never mind. I will change that for maybe some kind of cyan again because I really like that color for some reason. Okay. So maybe something of the sort. I like that. Now let's just go ahead and make sure that this is centered and just move this about here. Now this is a shape tool, so I am going to right click on it and rasterize the layer. Okay, once that is done, I'll simply go ahead and just create two white stripes. So I'll create a new layer, choose the white color, and simply make a rectangle, doesn't really matter. Then I will hit G and paste my white in there. Now unselect that, Control T to move it around, and we'll just scale it up a little bit, maybe like that. Make sure it's in the center. Then hit apply, Control J on the keyboard, move this like that, and that would be our pause button. Okay, now I will make sure to merge these two layers together. And this is the background, so I'll name this button background or button BG, and these are the white stripe or the pause stripe. Okay, maybe give it some effects if you want, maybe some kind of bevel, some inner bevel or outer bevel with bigger depth. you can just pretty much just play around with the settings as much as you wish. So I'll give it some inner shadow, why not? I'm not really a designer, I'm not really good at this, but you just have to be creative. And that will do the job. So if we turn this off, and we actually remove the other measuring, oh, we must not remove it, but if we just turn it off as well, this would be how our UI looks from really far away. Okay, so that's the pause button. Now if we just take our measuring unit, move it over here. Okay, now for the boost button, what I was thinking is creating some kind of circle, but a circle that is cut. So I'll just go ahead and just create a new folder. I'll name this boost button. And let's go ahead and just drag and drop this measuring unit in here. Change the color once more like we do. And what I will be doing is, since I know that this boost button is going to be anchored at the bottom right for me, what I'll do is something of the sort. So I will just go ahead and do this, create a new layer and paste my color in there. Alright, now I will hit W on the keyboard to select my to have the wand tool, and I will select my measuring unit, click on this square, and then do select inverse, go back on my circle layer and delete. So that's the kind of result we get. And I'm just going to turn on the background once more so we see a little bit better of what's going on. Make this black. And now my circle layer, I'll just name it background. Then I'll just go ahead and duplicate it, so Ctrl J on the keyboard, scale it up like so. Or I believe I can scale it up only, yep, like this. So by only holding shift, I'm able to scale it up without extending on these sides. Now on the first layer, I'll just go ahead and put another color on that. And drag and drop this up here. Right, so now we kind of have our own custom border. So what next could we be doing with this? We could be putting some kind of fire sign or fire button, and that would be cool. Now I'm not really good at drawing, but I think there is a fire custom shape, and there doesn't seem to be any, oh, but there is some kind of lighting shape that I'll be using. Okay, so here it is, a new layer. Actually, do we need a new layer? No, it's actually going to create a new layer itself. So what I'll be doing is changing this color for white, then creating this kind of lighting using the custom draw tool. Let's just move this somewhere in the center like that, and now we have to play with the colors a bit because they don't match at all. Right, so the background, we could be making it maybe this color, and as for the border, let's make it this color. And then we can add some kind of drop shadow, why not? So that's the drop shadow. It doesn't do anything, so I'm probably not on a good object. Let's try with this one. So drop shadow. Okay, maybe another effect, like maybe a stroke, so a 2 pixel stroke. And I will remove the opacity, not remove, but lower the opacity for say 25. And then inner shadow, that would be cool. If I go on the other layer, maybe add a gradient. I'm not sure, I'm just having fun right now. I don't really know what I'm doing. But yeah, just play around with it as much as you want, because the more work you put into it, of course, is going to look better. But we're only having a limited amount of time on this video, so I'll just end it here for this button. It doesn't look really good. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to fix it after the video and I'll upload it to the Facebook page. Right. Okay, let's keep going. Actually, you know what? I think it's time to actually try this out in the game. So what we'll do is we'll turn off the background. We will go ahead and hit File, Save As, and we're going to save this as a PNG this time. So let's go ahead and hit Save. we are going to go back inside of our game. So here is our UI atlas. There should be one that is a white background in it, and that's the PSD. And you can probably just tell by looking at the size. So this one is 170 KB and this one is 340 KB. Now you want the one that is the smallest because that's the PNG. And you're going to go ahead and change the texture type for sprite. Now once that is done, you are going to change the sprite mode for multiple, and we're going to go ahead and just open up the sprite editor, hit apply, and here we are. So that is the sprite editor. We are going to go ahead and just try to slice this as much as we can. So I've did a simple rectangle selection here. It's actually just like a drag selection. So you start from up here, you left click and drag, gives you something of the sort. Now just go ahead and make yourself a rectangle around this object and go ahead and modify that manually. So we know that the width is 256 and we know that the height is 128. Now just take this and move it upward until it snaps up, which will mean that your Y is on 384. Now if we do a quick math, so 512 minus 384, that should give us 128, which is the height of this thing, and this pretty much match. So that's our first object. Now let's just click an alt somewhere else, go ahead and make this 128 by 128. Now in terms of width, you want to put this at 256, and we need the exact same amount we had, so I think it was 384. So here we go. So same thing as last time, click an alt somewhere, make this 128 by 128. The X would be 258 plus 128, and this would be 384. So here we go. We pretty much just did the trim. Now if we go back and hit apply, we should be able to see our three objects right here separate. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and change this in our game. Actually, I've actually tried that before, that's why you see the UI already. But if we just go ahead, choose our pause menu and go over here in the source image, you can go ahead and change that for the UI atlas at the index 0. Now let's do the same exact thing for the boost. So go on boost, I think it is this one, so yep, this guy. You're going to change the UI sprite for this guy. Now the color can go back to white, and we can remove the text component inside of it. So here it is. Same thing for the pause button. So we click on the pause button, we choose this little thing here, take the pause button and remove the text component. Oh, and also change the color, remove the yellow we had before, so it looks like this. And now if you notice, this panel is a little bit more transparent, and that's because I think we've set a color. So if you go back on the pause menu, color, as you can tell, the alpha is down. So let's just bump this back up like so and hit save. Okay, so this makes a little bit more sense. Now let's keep going and actually change the joystick. So we are going to take a measuring unit, so any of those, drag it down here, why not, and maybe at the beginning, so we can start back from this side. And we're gonna go ahead and just make those joysticks. So what I'll do is I'll create a new folder, move it somewhere here, and I'll call this joystick background, because if you remember correctly, the joystick is actually two images. It is the background, the one you see here, and the one you see in front as well. So these are two images, we're going to be splitting them, and they're going to be fairly simple. In fact, I think they're going to remain pretty much the exact same way, maybe a little bit smaller though. Okay, so as for the background, something really simple. I simply start from the center, at least try, then hold Shift and Alt to create this kind of selection. Right now I'm on the elliptical mark tool, so that's how you select a circle. Then paste in my color and maybe move this a little bit. Oh, I actually did that on top of the measuring unit, so let me just create a new layer, and here we go. Okay, so Oh, by the way, when you hear these key, that's because I'm hitting Control T for free transform, and I'm using the arrow keys to move it around, so I can center it a little bit better. Alright, so that's the background of my joystick. Maybe give it some kind of gradient starting from the inside, so I'll just toggle the gradient. I will make this a radial like that, and change the color for something of maybe of like the sort, I'm not sure. Okay, something like that, I like that. Right. And maybe give it a stroke, so a little stroke here, why not, with a cyan color. And why not a inner bevel? Okay, cool, so something of the sort. Now if we toggle off the measuring unit, that's what we get. That's for the background. Now remember, there's always going to be something on top of that. So what I'll do now is I'll actually duplicate the whole folder. So I'll choose the folder, hit Ctrl J, then hit Ctrl T, move it right next to it. Oh, just make sure it is pixel perfect. And now I'm just going to turn off this guy and also change the name for Joystick. Okay. Then I'm going to remove the gradient we had before. And what else could we be doing? We could be removing the inner shadow. Instead, we're going to be using the outer shadow, so the drop shadow. Scale it inward, like so. And then we could be drawing some direction on top of that. So maybe using the custom draw tool, the custom shape, I think there are some lines that you can use. So maybe these type of arrows, I'm not sure. No, that ain't gonna cut it. So let's just go ahead and just make some little markings on this using the paint tool. So I'll be using actually the pencil tool. Make this quite small, so maybe 5 pixels. Oh, that's still too big, so maybe 3 pixels. And on a new layer, I'll be using the black color. Just try to draw something like that, but be a little bit more precise, of course. So I'll be clicking up here in the middle and holding Shift, then clicking about here. Same thing on the other side. So here's one. I'll duplicate it, flip vertical, move it down here. Take these 2 layers I've just made and merge them. Ctrl J to duplicate, and then rotate it like that. Now of course they could use a little bit more work and they could be a little bit better looking, so I'll just keep working on them a little bit. Alright, so that's the result I got. It's not too bad, but it's not too great either. Of course, everybody can work on their own art and make this look awesome. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just remove the measuring unit like we always do. So where is it at? Right here. And oh, I accidentally turned off these. Okay. Right, so let's go ahead and save this once more. I'm going to hit Ctrl S to save the PSD. Now save as, and we're going to save as a PNG, override the one we had before, and then hit save. Okay, let's go back in Unity. Everything should still work fine. And now for some reason the alpha has been fixed, and I'm not quite sure why, but as you can tell, there is alpha here, and there should be alpha on this as well. Right. Now let's go inside of texture. As you can tell, we have this guy, and this guy, but we don't have the 2 new ones. So what we'll do is select the root of UI Atlas, and we'll hit Sprite Editor once more, and then create 2 new squares. So same thing as always, 128 by 128. We want the X on 0, and we want the Y on 384 minus 128. And this removed my height, so I'll just put it back up, 128. And here we go, so that's the first one. Let's go ahead and do the next one. So position is 128, and the Y, I don't remember, so 384 minus 128. Oh, obviously 256. Okay, and then as for the height, 128, and as for the width, 128. Good. Now we should be pretty much good to go. If we go choose our joysticks, let's take the virtual joystick container first and change the image, that's the background image, for this guy. Now if we go on the joystick, we do the same thing but with the other thing. So here it is. And then we can manually change the width back up to say 200 by 200. Alright, so let's go ahead and try to play this in the game, see how it looks. It already looks a lot better than used to. The whole UI really gave me a headache, so I'm quite happy about this step. Let's go ahead and change these big white buttons too. So main menu, let's select this guy. Change the source image for this. So the image at the index is 0. We'll do the same thing for the resume button. And then we can scale this down to say 50. Same thing on the main menu. And maybe change the color of that. So the text color is going to be white. And I'd like to have it as a bold font. So is that possible? Oh, bold over here. Like that. So font size 18. Font size 18. And here we go. So I'll just change that for bold as well. Already makes a lot more sense. Great. So let's go back on the main menu and we have to do the same exact thing. So open up the main menu scene. I'll go ahead and select these, the first one being the main menu. Change the background for this. And the size is okay to me. Now let's go change the button level selection to that. Change the text, maybe make the font size a little bit smaller, so 12. Make this bold. Change the color for white. Then the shop, same exact thing, button shop, we do this guy. Change the text, bold, 12, and finally the color. Now again, we have the same issue we had a little bit earlier on, where this menu would have a alpha of 100. So let's bump this up to maybe full amount, why not? Now let's go ahead and change this for the level selection as well. So I'll just choose this guy, change the source image for this, and with our mask enabled, this is the kind of result we get. So we're gonna have to do some repositioning of the back buttons so they're actually inside of this. And we will actually create some new back buttons as well. So let's actually put that on hold and fix the rest. So over here in the shop. Now as for the shop, it's going to be a little bit different, and that is because we have some issues with the masking. So let me show you real quick. Say we were to change the shop source image for this. As you can tell, we get some kind of issues over here where the currency first this goes out and the button is also cut, but that we can fix by manually moving them inward. Thing is, we actually have some dynamic element in there inside of the shop item container, and that's really annoying because if we take a look, we can't really afford to have that just yet. Now it's just a warning that I put out there. We're gonna be fixing that a little bit later on. In this episode, I'd like to just focus on the UI itself, so I will just put that here. Then move the currency back inside of this. Move the ball a bit on this side, and the button doesn't really matter because we have to create it. So here we go, something of the sort, and that is how our UI is going to look, a little bit more cool. Right, let's quickly create a button, a back button that we can use. So I'm not going to complicate things too much. I am simply going to take the pause button, then duplicate it, the folder, and then move it downward, so 128 pixels right below this guy. And inside of this new button thing, well, first I'll name it back button, and I'll remove the white stripes, and then keep the background, remove the measuring unit as well, and we will simply create some kind of arrow like that. Now, there's probably a good way to do it, and I should be doing it that way, but what I'll do is I'll simply take a bigger size pencil, maybe 10 pixels, start right about here, click, and then shift click, so it makes a straight line. I'll duplicate this line. Oh, never mind, I'm on the I was on the wrong layer. I had to create a new layer. So creating a new layer, clicking here, shift clicked about here, duplicate by hitting Ctrl J, then Ctrl T, flip vertical, move it that way, and here we go. Now I'm going to merge these and control the arrow as I wish, so maybe like that. And then I'll go back inside of the old pause button. I will go ahead and just copy the white strip layer style and paste it on this. That's not really pretty. Okay, let's change the color as well. So color overlay, let's put that on white. And maybe make it bigger like that. And that will do the job. Okay, so I'm gonna hit save to save the PSD, gonna hit save as PNG and UI Atlas. Hit OK, let's go back in the game. And we're gonna choose our UI root once more, sprite editor, and create a new cut for this guy. So 256 in X, and then the width is 128, the height is 128, and as for the Y, that's 256. Okay, hit apply. Now these buttons, these back buttons over here, I think it's this guy, I'm not sure. Yep, these guys. Going to change that for our new button. Now we don't need the text inside of it anymore, so I'll just remove that. And we can scale it up if we wish, but I'll be leaving mine like that up here. And now on this side, it's the same exact thing. I will go ahead and just select the guy, remove the text component, change the color, and then move it inward right about here. But now this one is not pointing towards the right direction, so what we can do is simply rotate the thing. Oops, so there it is. And here we go. But now the shadow is not correct, so let's go back to what we had. And I think we can scale it up in this direction. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll just move it here, then scale it up in the x-axis, so it is -1, I believe. So -1 in x. And now it's pointing toward the other direction. Okay. And also the alpha of these panels, they're not correct, so I'll just fix that as well. Here we go. And alpha. Right. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit play on this. Level selection, level 1, 2. Of course, we have a lot of fixing to do here in terms of the masking. And then inside of our game, this is now our new UI that we've made fairly quickly. Now I recommend you to work a lot of your UI, because UI is a big part of your game, and that's pretty much what's making your game look good or not. Alright guys, so if you learned something or if you enjoyed the video, please just leave me a like. I really appreciate that, and it does really help me out. Just let me know that you guys are interested in this series still. If you have any question or comment, you can leave them in the comment section below. Else you can go on the Facebook page and just leave your question there, or ask me directly your question. Now on the Facebook page there is also this texture that you can take. It's going to be there, so in the comment section below there's a link to that in case you don't want to draw it, because drawing is, you know, it's not programming. And if you'd like to share your own art, then you can do the same thing on the Facebook page. So guys, thanks a lot for watching, subscribe for more, and I will be seeing you in the next episode. Goodbye.